He's been practicing a lot on stream, of course, but the results just haven't been there.
Yeah. I will say there's small differences in terms of the play. I do agree that the results are probably not what we would expect of these two particular players. With DawN, I feel like over the past few weeks, we've seen flashes of brilliance. I do remember that in the LHS week, he was the one that went for a Battle Mage into Coin Og Merchant that just won the whole game versus Shaman. But we've also been seeing some very objective technical errors from DawN, just missing the wrong trade and not playing around a pretty likely 2-turn lethal setup on that same week. So I would like to see him clean it up a little bit from Tyler. I've been very much enjoying and I'm respectful of his level of play. I think it's on par with the old Tyler that we've been seeing, but the results are not coming together for some reason.
Fair enough. We'll have to see. We can take a look at Tyler's decks. I think last week there were maybe a couple of small things that could have been improved upon. But like you say, this is Tyler, the player who's had incredible performance over the HCT circuit in previous years. And while he hasn't been able to transition it all too well into Grandmasters, at the very least we can say he's back on practicing a lot, which is when Tyler, that's his real strength, I feel like, as a player. Last year, he was doing a lot of other stuff while Grandmasters was on, wasn't giving it his 100% attention, to be honest. But now, well back on the streaming grind, playing a huge amount of Hearthstone. And with his decks again this week, I think it's pretty much just what he's been playing on stream.
So has there been a whole lot of dragons? That looks like the outlier for me, at least in terms of GM decks. We've been seeing rise in Hunter popularity lately, but that's because of Face Hunter and Highlander Hunter. But of course, before Face Hunter, in just the previous meta before this expansion, this was the aggro deck, taking advantage of the Scam Hammer itself.
Yeah, it really was. I haven't seen all too much of it on his stream. Maybe I didn't catch those days, or very possibly he just hasn't been playing it on stream, and this is maybe a slightly different bring. But overall, it is a lot of the same stuff from Tyler this week. No Rogue, going with the Galakron Priest yet again. On the other side, however, from DawN, we have a pretty cool lineup with a lot of different twists. Some that I'm a fan of, some that I'm not so much a fan of. The Dark Fairy Takan that we've talked about, I'm unconvinced, or I haven't seen it all too much, but I definitely like the idea. However, up at the top, the Priestess of Fury build in Demon Hunter is something that I'm just, to be honest, Gia, really not a fan of.
I would have to agree with you there, just because of the frequency of other Demon Hunters in the field. And if you expect to be banning out Warrior, which I feel would be potentially one of the matchups where Priestess of Fury could help, whereas in the mirror, it probably struggles because it just comes down far too late for you to be able to swing back the board and have enough health to close the game out in your favor.
Yeah. I think that it's just, you want more consistency with the Outcast cards, and you want to be able to go for the best game plan in the mid game as possible, especially when DawN is also running 2 copies of Spectral Sight, which is another Outcast card that most players have ended up cutting at this point. It just feels like a little bit of an unoptimized build of the Demon Hunter overall, which could be a very important point in the series when there are so few matches to be played. But up first for these players, the matchup is going to be Priest for Tyler up against the Demon Hunter for DawN for our first game. And Gia, again, this is a matchup that I think at first we were maybe on the wrong side of, saying that Galakron Priest was favored versus Demon Hunter. But I feel like as there have been various waves of nerfs and changes of the decks, I'm actually coming to the opinion that I think Priest is actually starting to be in, again, a pretty good spot against Demon Hunter.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I think Demon Hunter still has the edge in this matchup because of the fact that Priest does not draw consistently, whether it's Resurrect Priest or it's Galakron Priest. They need to have very specific consecutive removals. Just 1 or 2 pieces usually won't do enough against a good Demon Hunter player that won't go too all in into a single Breath of the Infinite. They'll be staggered threats and making sure that Priest needs to have the answers turn after turn. And if they miss even 1 turn of answers, suddenly just a couple of face attacks, and then the burst can get there in the end. I will say, though, that DawN's list is only running 1 Warglaze of Adenoth, which I think is important in almost all of the matchups where you are hoping to go a little bit later.
Yeah, I think the difference for me in terms of the matchup hasn't been necessarily so much in like you said, the reactive game plan. It's been more in the Priest going for a proactive game plan. I'm seeing more and more them dominating the board early on. The inclusion of Mind Flayer Kaj can be a huge knock against the Priest's early game plan. More Shadow Madness in order to fight back in the early game. And I just feel like as the Demon Hunter, you're rarely pulling so far ahead that you can just blow them out of the water by turn 5 or 6. And if it does go that little bit longer, then they can start to heal up with Apotheosis. I'm not by any means saying that it's an incredibly favored matchup by Priest at all. I'm just saying it's hovering a little bit closer around the 50% mark here for both the decks.
That I can get behind, especially with the new technology for Priest that you mentioned. Another big one is Moarg Artificer, which paired with the AoE or even just a simple penance can be so much burst healing for Priest later on to just get that 1 or 2 health out of range for Demon Hunter. And that can be enough for you to just stick an Apotheosis and then pull too far ahead for them to come back against.
Exactly. But the main thing is really just for me, the fact that so much of the late game has been stripped. We started off with 2 Blager deaths, then we worked our way down to 1. Now we're down on 0. And I think we can agree as a community, it's just good enough against the late game decks, but gets so much more consistency against the early game aggro Demon Hunters and their face hunters that you're facing at the moment.
That's right. We have enough plagues in real life, and now you can see from DawN already the Raging Fell Screamer in hand. I feel like this card, of course, it's only runner playing Priestess of Fury as well because you want to do the 4 into 5 curve. But given a hand where DawN already has a 1-drop, 2-drop, and that the matchup is slower, I was going to say I actually like keeping it, and DawN goes ahead and keeps the skull as well.
I can definitely get on board with this game plan for a couple of reasons. One, I feel like this is one of the reasons why overall Demon Hunter is starting to feel less favored versus the Priest, is because they're cutting some card draw. Some decks cutting Skull, most of them cutting Spectral Sight. You're less likely to hit the curve in terms of draw. And also, for DawN, Skull has a very high chance of being sandwiched between 2 big cards later on in the game. And so I really like just getting it where it's guaranteed to be able to cast on turn 6.
Indeed. DawN here going to just use his hero power, not expend the Umberwing charge, because it looks like for him, he might just be playing Umberwing hero power next turn and not even using the coin until turn 5.
That was reserved. I'm looking at it more and more, and at first I thought it was genius. Now I'm slightly less convinced, because he could have gone for the Umberwing last turn and then just held back on a damage this turn, and then gone coin Glavebound thereafter. And he would have had more 1/1s in play. I think it's close either way.
Definitely close. I think it depends on whether you value the Glavebound on 4 in this matchup more than you value the Skull on 5.
That's true.
Tyler's played a 3/6 without the Battlecry value, just to respect the board and try to gain advantage of it. And I think that's absolutely correct. You don't need to milk a bit of value out of your cards in this matchup. You just need to stay alive until you hit the power cards like Soul Mirror and Murazon already in hand for Tyler.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Gia, but I think this is a pretty cut and dry Glavebound turn. It just swings the board so heavily. And if on turn 5 they're going for Shadow Word Death, even if they have it, rather than the Shield of Galakrond, you're very happy.
I was talking about the coin Skull for DawN, but of course that plan deviates when he actually loses control of the board. And he's still able to play the Fell Screamer loaded up. It's not one of those effects where it's only the next turn that you get the discount. It is just the next demon overall. And that's one of the strengths of the card.
Okay, as the I-beams shuffle down the roundabout here, the Fell Screamer definitely does feel like you're, again, setting up for the most powerful player after all, because the Kane Sun Fury can have, although it's not necessarily guaranteed, some good benefit in terms of getting past taunts later on in the game.
Definitely not insignificant. We already had the Shield of Galakrond. Definitely not as useful as it would be against Galakrond. Against Resurrect Priest.
Yeah.
But Tyler's still got to watch out. Another Soul Mirror. With the way his hand is shaped, it might be that he needs to take something cheaper just to be able to do something like Soul Mirror plus Radiance on the same turn. Or a Holy Smite to kill off a minion that might have more health than attack.
Oh, gee, I'm running through so many things here, because I'm thinking as well that Soul Mirror, if you think about the way it lines up against most of the minions, even the late game cards, like specifically the Priestess of Fury, it actually lines up really well against Priestess, because you get your own copy that does its own damage at the end of the turn to finish off your opponents. So Soul Mirror could be a premium card in the matchup, but of course, once you enter Galakron mode, premium effect is healing of any kind.
It is a very fun interaction. But DawN here, with the draw of Satyr Overseer, has the chance to deviate from the Skull on 6 plan.
I like it a lot. You definitely don't need to go for Skull here at all. And when you have the ability to push 5 extra damage to the face with I-Beam Chaos Strike, it just seems very easy to go for this.
Indeed.
Or
pushing the full 7.
8 damage, yeah, exactly.
Okay, 8 with the hero power, alright. DawN saying he doesn't need to save the healing for anything in particular in this matchup. This is gonna be a devastating swing.
Alas, poor warlock.
And here we go for DawN. Clearly, I think, trying to find any card draw he possibly can to keep that rolling. But also, in this matchup, setting up for a big Altruist turn can be the difference maker in going for the win or the loss.
Draw again with the Chaos Strike. If he's thinking of holding it, it is because of what you mentioned about Altruist.
He's got a good enough play on the following turn, and to be fair, Pain plus Raging Fell Scream, it should be more than good enough there.
Oof. Hard draw for Priest is only stolen from other classes, of course.
Yeah, this Murozond is pretty insane. It's not quite as good as the wand that Tyler was able to get off of Murozond versus Samuel Sao, but it does mean he should have more than enough cards to get him through this mid stage of the game. And now, all of a sudden, that pick of Radiance is looking pretty genius.
It really is. Because now we can see that DawN will have a very difficult time coming back onto the board. I think he'll be very tempted to just ship a bunch of this damage face, including the down he's drawn. But the second he leaves up a high attack minion, the Apotheosis becomes too big of a punish, so he's respecting it here. Respecting everything.
Very wisely so. Yeah, this is the problem of your opponent having a whole bunch of card draw. You do just have to respect everything, like you said. It's because they're so likely to have it at that point.
So we could see Amit into Moarg into Breath of the Infinite for a full clear and stick 2 minions still.
That sounds good to me, Gia. The only other thing I can think of wanting to fit in is the Thought Steal, if you feel like you're going to need some extra cards for following turn, but I don't really see that as happening.
He's gearing up. Of course, the alternative is to just kill off your Moarg immediately and stick a 2/7 on it. But I feel that the Moarg is actually a larger threat in this matchup where Demon Hunter probably won't be trading down your minions if they're this size already.
Especially when you just don't really have the ability to. Look at this Priestess of Fury as well. How much damage is going to be soaked into nothing? But all of a sudden, when DawN doesn't clear the board, Apotheosis comes down. Tyler has the attack on all possible angles now.
The one saving grace for DawN is that the attack power of the minions for Tyler on board isn't too high. Apotheosis would heal 4 per turn. And if DawN just draws his Metamorphosis, he might even be able to race a 4 to 6 point swing.
My blades will sing.
Maybe. I find that pretty unlikely, even if he does find exactly, as he said, the Metamorphosis.
It would have to be draw into... I'm thinking Spectral Sight to Metamorphosis plus the War.
Right, okay.
Something specific.
Yeah, yeah.
And
there it is, the last thing in the world that DawN wanted to see.
Kron as well for the further armor gain. Yeah. This does not look like it's gonna get there, and wow, I've never seen Priest look more powerful, but if there's any draw that's gonna help DawN get back in the game, it is that one.
Warlock.
Well, that's playable. There's the Metamorphosis you were talking about.
Ooh.
There's the Altruis. Whoa.
This turn is looking like a full hold to me, Dark.
We could see DawN going for the Metamorphosis here first of all.
Sure. Still got mana for everything else.
Arguably even then ping face to just set up for all the cards being played with Altruis on the following turn.
Just does it this way. It's a pretty good outcome just to isolate the Ahmet. Make it so that it's not going face every single time.
Yep. The funny thing is, though, that Tyler can, of course, buff the Ahmet again, should he so desire, with Kronks for a 6 health swing. Probably can find something a little bit more impressive if he's trying to clear off the Priestess as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at him just sacking the Ahmet with the Penance trade also, and then Kronks for development. Could even fit in a Thought Steal with that play.
What if?
But at this point, Tyler's probably thinking the only way he loses is insane Altruist turn.
Yep, and I think that's a very safe assumption to come to.
That's pretty fun. More draw for Tyler.
And I mean, just look at this. Even if we were to see the most insane Altruist turn possible here, which would be 7 damage if we're being very generous here, plus obviously the 4 from the Twin Strikes, it doesn't even come close here.
We could see DawN just go for it anyway to swing back the board and weapon. Or hold back another turn, get the weapon to swing face, and ignore this board because it is probably dying next turn.
Now I am complete.
Okay, I like this from DawN.
This is very much cards face up at this point. Tyler knows if he's not bothering to clear this off, there is only one play he's setting up for, and with only 5 cards left, he's very likely to have it at this point as well in the Altruis. And therefore, Tyler, if he expects an incredibly powerful Altruis, could just basically hold back completely here. I like it.
We are all bound to fate.
Here we go.
Yep. Well, he's got the full clear. 6 cards playable on this turn.
If he wants, he could buff his Battle Fiend a little bit by shipping damage into the Lightwell and then face, but I feel that's pretty counterintuitive because he wants that damage to go face eventually.
Exactly.
Do you see what must be done?
It's nothing to scoff at. But Tyler, we can already see that he's got board clears for days, for weeks.
You just hit the card draw. This is the one key piece of the puzzle that has been missing for Priest, and you can just see the power of the deck once that becomes available. Their removal is so premium at the moment that as soon as they have it when they need it, it's just game over.
He put together the inner demon on his own. You know what? This was more damage than I thought it would be, Dara. What?
It was a lot of damage, to be fair.
But Tyler has got our double Holy Nova if he wants it.
Yeah, he's got so many ways to go about this.
That doesn't heal his face, though, for extra with the Moarg, because it's not a lifesteal effect, it's heal your face for 2, so it's not an effect that goes onto a minion, unlike the Nether Breath. So are we looking at Breath of the Infinite, Holy Nova, Holy Smite? Sorry,
Yep.
he doesn't need to do 2 pieces of AoE.
Yeah, Breath of the Infinite, Holy Smite plus Kronks for Taunt.
Oh, not going for healing is a bit scary though.
Oh, okay, sure, heal. Yeah, fair.
You could make arguments for both because he's seen the weapon.
Yeah.
And as far as burst, I think... Yeah, there's almost none left. Yeah, the taunt is actually better here just because the Metamorphosis has already been used. Last cards for DawN.
The I-Beam's been played.
Not many cards.
One drops of the Spectral Sight. Yeah.
I yield for now.
That was
He just throws
very
it down.
close at the end.
Much closer than I thought he had any right to. And it is generally the way you play those matchups. After you've lost the board in the early game as the Demon Hunter, you try and set up, as I said, for the most powerful Altruist turn that you possibly can. But Tyler, he was just that little bit too far ahead. It speaks back again. So as I was saying, the Apotheosis just feels unbeatable as Demon Hunter because the only way you really have to clear off minions is by attacking into them, which of course gives them yet more lifesteal thereafter. It's just a budget old school Reno Jackson.
It really is. But I think that the crucial turn from Tyler there was the timing of Murazond in order to get the skull for himself, which then gave him even more Demon Hunter shenanigans. So Priest, I'm still unconvinced as to its power level in a vacuum. But if you're able to match your removal and the cards that take advantage of what your opponent plays on the right turn, it suddenly looks unbeatable.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't get me wrong, Gia. It pains me on a atomic level in order to say that Priest is pretty good at the moment, but I've got to say what I see here, and I think Priest is in a decent spot. So with Tyler going one game up there over the Demon Hunter, he's got, as a lot of people would say, one of the weaker decks overall out of the way, and he's just left with the Demon Hunter and the Face Hunter, which I cannot wait to get a look at, or the Dragon Aggro Hunter, I should say, a little bit later. But before we can jump into the rest of the series, we are going to go to a quick break, but don't go anywhere. The rest of Tyler versus
DawN.
Welcome back, everybody, once again to Hearthstone Grandmasters. Sorry about that technical difficulty. It was, of course, no fault of my own. It never is. But we are back with Tyler versus, DawN. That's what we got up now, Gia. And with Tyler, 1-0 up with the Priest. He is, in my opinion, in a very good position, especially as I like his take on the Hunter. I haven't had quite so much experience with the Dragon version as I have with the Face Hunter version. But I think overall, there's a obviously very strong comparison between the two.
Of course, they do love to go face, but I think that the timing of when you go face is a little bit different with the Dragon Hunter, because I would say in the early game, Dragon Hunter is still wrestling for a bit of board control, and they tend to get it very early because of Stormhammer and an early Dwarven Sharpshooter, or also the Corrosive Breath, which doubles as removal and face damage. They get the best of both worlds, so that might actually help it line up better against some of DawN's decks.
It could indeed. But again, before we get into that, we're going to the Demon Hunter mirror. It's going to be a crucial breakpoint, as so often is in these matchups already. As a couple of interesting things going on. First of all, great starting hand, especially with the pickup there of the Overseer. But also just the Beaming Sidekick overall, Gia, is a pretty cool new inclusion.
It really is. It gives so much sustain as the opposing removal, and not just in the mirror, in basically every matchup. A lot of the classes want to deal their damage in 2s right now. And because the Demon Hunter minions are statted at 2 health most often, just buffing them up out of range of AoEs, backstabs, Kobold Lackeys can make all the difference.
Tyler is obviously not happy about seeing the Twin Slice here, but it does at the very least give him information about how he should plan out his next few turns, because Satyr Overseer, he knows, at the very least, is able to be killed off with hero power plus the second Slice that DawN has access to. Do you think that ever deters him from playing it on 3, Gia?
It's very tough to say, because if expecting that DawN will take face damage to deal with the Satyr Overseer, then it's kind of a win in and of itself, because you developed a minion, your opponent spent their turn removing it, and you got net damage gain. I think a lot of it will come to what Tyler is going to draw off the top there. And for DawN, this turn was an interesting decision, because you could have seen him cycle with the Chaos Strike, but it's kind of a waste of damage. And the sad thing for DawN is that the I-Beam is in the absolute worst position in his hand, trapped between Priestess and a bunch of 5-drops. Going to be difficult for him to free that up for the full outcast value.
I mean, what do you expect if you're putting in these 7 cost cards into your deck? This is what can happen. It was the biggest weakness of the old school combo Demon Hunter deck. When you're running Inner Demon, is so often your Skull, your Spectral Sight, whatever it would be, could get stuck between your big spells, and all of a sudden you cannot outcast, which is exactly what's happened here for DawN. It's happened many times with this version of the deck, and it's why I don't like it.
And what's happening here for Tyler is the exact dilemma you asked me about last turn. The way it's shaped up, it's either he takes a lackluster turn 3, or most likely a lackluster turn 4, unless he top decks something great off. And he's gonna go with the lackluster, in theory, turn 4.
Of course, he knows, as we've said, that there is the ability to clear it off. But I know, even though we call it a lackluster turn 4, it's not that bad. It's still just development onto the board, keeps the damage coming, and this means that DawN is pretty far behind.
And with DawN there, he opts to go for the I-Beam for the full mana.
Hey, I got you, friend.
Says that he doesn't want to take this 4 damage, and he knows that the I-Beam won't be freed up for outcast value for a long time anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. He, upon looking at it a bit closer, is quite obviously looking to hold on to the second slice, to leave him coin second slice Glavebound on turn 4. But it was whether or not he used the Chaos Strike there, and I guess overall this did work out pretty well for him.
I like it for him here. And now he gets the big swing he was leading up to. And we're gonna see the very fun interaction that's a tongue twister about he who Glavebounds blah 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 blah. But this time, they both also have Warglaves of Azzinoth. So Tyler, if he wants to play chicken against the opposing adept, doesn't even have to give up a strong turn. He could still equip his Warglaves.
That's right. It's a very, very powerful turn to go for here, to just start swinging face and close out the game.
DawN smartly onto a charge of the Warglaves in order to be able to play potentially a glaive bound on curve, but he's gotten something better now. Cycle.
Yeah, what he cycled into wasn't all too good though.
Definitely looking for his I-beams. Sorry, the one remaining I-beam.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, I was going to say, while Tyler was holding back last turn, this turn, we are almost certainly going to see a glaive bound. But now another very niche but powerful part of the beaming sidekick is exactly this, Gia.
Yes, he can buff the Adept right up to 6 health, out of range of the other Adept being able to kill it on the backswing. And then Tyler just has the advantage from all sides. He's got the health advantage, and he'll have the board on lockdown.
When it comes to glaive-bound tennis, it looks like Tyler has game set and match here. But in the end, actually decides to alternate away and get an immediately slightly less powerful play, but I guess still sets up pretty much lethal next turn.
I think in both cases, you set up a near guaranteed lethal because DawN just simply doesn't have a way to clear everything on board if it's at a super high health total. I think Tyler might be thinking that DawN's only way to swing a full board clear is with Altruist, in which case he would rather put the most health on board possible, which is a +1 point difference with Kayn over Glavebound. That's my best guess anyway.
They will never catch.
Seems as good as any. And sometimes in these situations where it's so close, you just play the first play that you saw, which for Tyler here, I think may just be the Kayn instead of the Glavebound, and it really doesn't make any difference. DawN is hopelessly and helplessly scrabbling for some kind of an answer out of it, and it does not appear, which means Tyler is 2-0 up, potentially in for our second 3-0 of the day here.
Yeah.
And no matter what, it's still going to be very quick, because the only deck that Tyler is remaining with is the Dragon Hunter Gia.
Yes, and you know what? I kind of regret my assessment of Priestess of Fury when I saw it announced before the expansion even dropped. I thought this card was insane. It looked like the strongest one in the whole set to me. And now, not only is it not even being played in the first iterations in Demon Hunter, even after several rounds of nerfs, it's getting played, but we still think it's the inferior version of the deck, and in large part due to the mirror. How many times now has it been that we've seen a mirror end with the person playing those demon package with the cards just still in hand?
I mean, this is one of my favorite moments of being smug about a card going wrong, was when, after the playtesting, Crip tweeted out, Priestess of Fury is going to be one of the best cards ever printed. It's easily the best Demon Hunter card. And then a day after the expansion came out, he retweeted his tweet. And now, after like 7 cards have been nerfed in Demon Hunter, Priestess of Fury hasn't been touched. And it still is, in most players' opinion, not good enough to play in the deck. It's just kind of funny how it works out there. But you can definitely make the argument for it if you're DawN. Clearly, though, based on this series, it is not working out for him. He's still yet to get a single win with his Demon Hunter in this series. And to be perfectly honest, up against the Dragon Hunter, I really don't feel like this version of Demon Hunter is in a particularly good spot either. Yes, you're less vulnerable to the explosive trap because you have a little bit more mid to late game. But to be perfectly honest, against a deck this aggressive, I doubt it's really going to come down.
I completely agree. The time that Priestess of Fury comes down outside of the discount from the Fell Screamer is turn 7, by which point you're probably 10 health or less, don't even have the time to develop, let alone try and kill your opponent.
No.
That
It's
is
going to be an uphill climb for DawN, but the Battlefield on 1 never hurts.
Doesn't indeed. You still have most of the same cards in the early game, to be fair. It's not like you're completely gutting the aggressive parts of the deck and are just playing a late game control version. You still do have a lot of early game. You just don't find it all the time, as DawN hasn't here.
The lack of the beaming sidekick compared to the more popular lists, I think, is also a very big factor because of the secrets. So we were talking about the Imprisoned Felmaw a lot in practice, and we feel like the only time it's really good to play is on turn 2 or turn 1 coined. But do you really want to be coining a dormant minion when there's the threat of this Battle Fiends snowballing out of control. I think that this is one of the situations where you deviate from the Thelmaw ASAP.
I agree. I like either the Blazing Battle Mage here or the coin into the 2/3, sorry, because it means that you are basically trading into the Battle Fiend very likely, unless a Twin Slice comes down, and that's just good. That's what you want to do here. You don't want to let it build up to too much attack so it can just cleanly trade with the Phase Stalker.
Yeah.
And even here, eating up an I-Beam, great. That's a good card to get rid of in this matchup.
Definitely, especially since it's not even getting the healing value. I think for Tyler, priority for saving the coin is in order to get the explosive trap down as soon as possible, which we keep going on and on about, is very good against at least Tempo Demon Hunter. In this case, it looks like it's probably only gonna get one target, or even zero, depending on how good of a this Thelmaw is.
And does that therefore mean that we see Tyler deviate over to Kill Command just to take it out, to give him a guaranteed nicer target?
I like the look of that.
Yep, same.
And
Look
for
at this
DawN,
Kane all of a sudden. Oh, awful.
terrible.
Absolutely awful.
This time the good boy does the trade. Yeah, Tyler's reaction says it all. He's so hyped. Love to see it.
Let's go. And now, of course, it's just very clearly a plan of loading up everything onto the board and getting the counter pressure rolling.
It's one of the few situations where he can freely play the second one.
Yep.
All I see is weakness.
Altruist, weirdly enough, is pretty close to popping off there on that turn. Only needed one cheap card off the top, and it would have been very much worth considering playing there. But in all likelihood, if you got anything decent at all, you want to set up for Skull on 6, Altruist plus a big pop-off turn on 7, or maybe after the Priestess.
And in most situations, I feel like that would be too slow of a game plan. But the way that this has panned out, where Tyler took kind of a slower approach to get the board in around turn 3, turn 4, and just remove what DawN developed. Now DawN has this opportunity to kind of pivot, because he's not going to be proccing this explosive trap anytime soon. And he doesn't even want to. He wants to be using his minions to trade into what Tyler will develop. So maybe this Altruist actually gets the job done, depending on what comes off of the Skull. We did this fun little testing in our of the interactions with the explosive trap and the Satyr Overseer. If you attack and the Overseer dies, it still spawns a 2/2, which doesn't die.
If your hero power procs the explosive trap.
Correct.
Yeah. Or whatever weapon effect.
So we could see here from DawN doing something along those lines. He could trade in his 2/2, go hero power face, and then pop off with Altruist.
Do you see what must be done?
Is he playing the game plan of never attacking here?
Catch me.
But how does this work? Altruist gets cleared, all of his damage comes from the face and minions, and the minions don't get through the explosive trap without running sideways.
Well, one card that does is Priestess of Fury, which I guess is DawN's entire game plan. I have never seen this approach even tried, let alone seen it work out. But it's a very cool way to approach the matchup, to say the least.
Wow.
He doesn't trade with it. Are there more secrets? That seems wrong, right?
That seems very wrong.
It means there's another minion that can stop the Thelmaw from going face, but even then, I think I'd rather stop the guaranteed 2 damage.
I agree. And the only secrets in the deck are explosive traps.
Yep.
It seems like he took 2 damage for no reason, because these 4/2s are not going to be able... Sorry, the 2/2s are not going to be able to go face.
Yep.
But you did make a great point about the Priestess, and it's still available to DawN if he wants just the 5 damage to face. This is reminding me of how Flurry played the Dragon Bank game plan against a similar deck face.
Gee, this is so weird. DawN just can't attack face, but he's... At the moment, it looks like he's still just gonna win.
Yeah, yeah, this is just lethal next turn if the Priestess isn't dealt with. Oh! The 1 and 3 get luck!
Oh!
Okay. So that's lethal, right? He just face tanks
That's game.
the 6/5. Yeah.
That is just game. That, from DawN, was that little spark of brilliance we've been talking about, Gia, that has been missing. Because I've got to be honest, I was approaching that game plan of just you proc it and hope to get through thereafter. But he just saw geniusly that you don't have to proc this explosive trap right until you win the game. Very good line.
Yeah, I really like the line as well. I'm still confused about the choice to face tank, because I don't feel like saving another 2 to help them out that much towards the end there. I will say, though, that the macro recognition from DawN was very good. I don't think you have the license to go for that line very often against this type of deck, but because DawN had the fast start, which caused Tyler to have a slower development in the mid game and actually use kill commands for removal, etc., DawN had the time to pivot and just wait for his Priestess to deal the lethal.
Very, very good line altogether. I like that a lot from DawN. And now with finally the garbage class of Demon Hunter out of the way, he can finally start playing the real classes in his lineup now, like the Druid and the Warlock. Whoa, that looks more like it, Gia. It's going to be a bit of an uphill climb, I think it's fair to say, for some of these decks against the Dragon Hunter. Specifically for the Druid is what I'm looking at. I think it's got some game against some of the Hunter archetypes, because as soon as you're hitting Mount Seller and you can just taunt up a big board, then very often that's too much for the Hunter to overcome. But there's just so many decent-sized minions for the Dragon Hunter, specifically minions that can't be targeted by spells, like the Evasive Feywing and Fairy Dragon, that Druid just doesn't have an answer to.
Agreed. Those are very problematic. It's not till Druid gets to put down their Glowflies or Mount Sellers, like you said, that they're able to fight back those. So I think this is going to be another one of those heavily Glowfly-dependent matchups, where if DawN doesn't get the absolute god draw of the Fungal Fortunes into Rampant to Glowfly, he'll probably be dead before you can even think about getting to Mount Seller.
And if it is the Druid, before we get to the Warlock... okay. I'll save my point about the Dragon Hunter versus the Druid for later on, because Tyler gave me some pretty spicy info about that particular matchup and his thought process behind it. But for now, before we can get into that, DawN's got the Zoo, and we're seeing, again, second time we're seeing it, and the second time that we are seeing Expired Merchant plus Hand of Gul'dan ready to go.
It's very, very powerful. But I wonder if DawN actually wants to be playing it immediately, because if you're coining out a 2-1, yes, you get the immediate card draw, but it seems like very low tempo against this particular matchup, where maybe he wants to just be playing the best statted minions and take the card draw when it's not at the expense of the coin.
Pretty sure I'd like to see the Dwarven Sharpshooter here for Tyler. It's not just the fact that we can see it would be very good against DawN's hand, it's just overall, it really does mess up a lot of what Zoo is trying to do on turn 1.
Yep. And it might be this is the perfectly statted minion to deal with something like Fiendish Servant or, say, a Guardian Aug Merchant if he had it. He will just go for the card draw, try to get something better.
Tyler clearly just trying to fill out his curve as efficiently as possible, and with a 3-drop ready to go, a 5-drop ready to go, there's a couple of things to consider here. Obviously, filling out your turn 4 is important, but also making sure you have a dragon that's able to go for Rotten Nest. I guess Primordial Drake does just take care of that. Primordial Explorer takes care of that. So he has more liberty to go for whatever best smooths out his game plan.
I'm liking the look of another Sharpshooter. Because as far as the turn 4 goes, 2 1-drops and being everything from Zoo seems very powerful to me.
Sure.
I miss Primordial Drake, though.
What was Primordial Drake? I said it. It's a phrase in my mind. What was the card?
Battle Cry, deal 2 damage.
Oh yeah,
that was the nuts.
That was a card.
Was amazing.
That is like the worst card that's ever been insanely good, because it's such a bad card, but it's still just so good.
It is not bad.
It's a pretty bad card, but
like
it's good.
Blizzard with a built-in body, and it's a taunt.
Yeah, I guess.
The Roomba strikes again.
Yeah. Well, at least he's devoting a little bit more of attention to the matches here, it seems. Than
He didn't press end turn though. Dawn can't respond.
Wait,
but
really?
Dawn has time to think about. Yeah. The turn timer's still going. Alright, there you go.
Thanks, buddy. And weirdly enough, like you were saying, the powerful effect of the Hand of Gul'dan has come down, but the rest of the game plan is just not here for DawN. His plays are so weak.
This turn, being able to rush the Nightshade Matron, and just getting the Rush Lackey this turn is a big deal, even if it only removes one minion and doesn't end up with a very well-statted board. It's just stall until DawN can get to his power turns.
Yeah, that's true. And given that Tyler has done, well, literally no damage so far to DawN's health, taking a slightly slower game plan should work out great for DawN.
So at first glance, the Rot Nest looks very good. But because he's got Rot Nest for the next turn, I think Tyler is going for the curve here, the best and stickiest minion.
Yeah, this works out great. Ooh.
That is spicy. I think 2 reasons for playing the Scrap Imp now are, 1, you want it down as soon as possible, and 2, Nightshade just does not look very pretty when there's a poison on the other side.
Yeah, the curve just looks too nice here. You can go for Nightshade next turn in order to draw more cards, and then the turn after you explode with all your small buffed minions you've hopefully drawn.
Indeed.
And
great timing going into the Rot Nest Drake turn from Tyler, and the Dormant minion, of course, cannot be killed off. Ingenuity draws Base Stalker, and just that because this is the second boar, I believe.
Yep. Which I think is fine. It's just more value.
Could just play it this turn as well.
Yeah, seems great. Smooths out the curve perfectly here for Tyler. The pressure isn't stopping anytime soon. And now for DawN. Where's your Nightshade Matron now? Trading into the Phase Stalker and not even killing it looks awful.
It really does. And at best, he can remove 2 damage from the board, facing down 7 on the backswing, and he will be able to have a powerful development on the next turn. Oh, that's huge.
Big draw. Yeah, 2 options there. He could either kill off the Phase Stalker or allow himself to take out the snake there, or the poisonous, sorry, which I think more important. Agreed.
Tyler, I think this is one of the few times you go off curve because just trading into Og Merchant and then killing off the Matron looks extremely powerful, gives him such a strong board, can still push 5 to the face.
Yeah, I completely agree.
And for DawN, he's assumed the position of begging for a carpet.
We've all been there before.
Deviation from Tyler.
Wants the secret that badly. Of course, Tyler's saying here, why would I trade at all when I can just start launching everything at the face? I'm not necessarily convinced by this game plan, to be honest, because the Scrap Imp just goes off. There's a lot of taunt minions in the deck, and there's no burst at all in Tyler's hand at the moment.
Right. I also think that you're not expecting DawN to go face this turn anyway. So if you expect DawN developing the explosive trap this early, doesn't do very much. The other one will still be stuck in hand for the following turn. But we'll see what Tyler thinks about it when he returns after this break.
Next time on what could possibly be so important right now, Tyler.
That was a bit weird from DawN. I was expecting that his 2 attack minion goes in the Feywing along with the Kobold to clear it off. And then he has a Voidwalker facing a 2-1 instead. All a bit more secure. Still got a bunch of taunts, but I think that could have been a minor optimization.
just more bodies onto the board, which is really not what Tyler has laid out his game plan to be. He does get the good hit there, but even then he's still not able to go Fates on the following turn.
Will it matter though? At this point, Tyler is just showing, what is this, like a 3-turn setup with his hero powers. At some point, DawN has to proc an explosive trap in order to win. But I think what we're seeing from DawN, and we know that he is very knowledgeable about play around these secrets, is that he's just going to develop minions that have enough health to get past them.
Yeah, the Takan is a huge swing around and really starts putting the pressure back on Tyler. And with Alexstrasza being discovered...
The Nosdormu's insane if your opponent's AFK. Oh my gosh! Isn't that just the nuts?
The true anti-Tyler tech.
We probably won't get to see it because it's at 9 mana, but oh my gosh, if it were 8 mana, that is just game ending right there.
But the Alexstrasza being found does massively change up DawN's game plan here, because before I think he was pretty much all in on saying, I have to attack here because I'm just dead over the next couple of turns anyway. But now, all of a sudden, not attacking here looks like a pretty valid game plan. I wonder if there's a way he could set up so that an offensive Alexstrasza actually just closes out the game.
That's what I'm looking at. He's got 13 that's able to go past explosive trap. So if he just puts another 2 damage on board in the form of a minion that has more than 2 health, he could very feasibly set up the lethal. Of course, it leaves him weak to things like corrosive breaths off the top or kill command. But it's very specific. The other burst from Tyler has to go through the taunt, and I think the Voidwalker is pretty good insurance.
Yeah.
He also has to think about what if Tyler puts damage onto his Voidwalker, then suddenly his minions might not be able to even attack through the explosive trap.
Point. But I think basically the main point is that for DawN, I like loading up on this turn, and then next turn going for the Alexstrasza offensively or defensively.
Omniscient is potentially huge. Attack one of his 4/2s and let it go face. Tyler's not back yet! What's happening?
Well, DawN just misses it as well. He could have gone Orc Merchant plus Beaming Sidekick to get the extra 2 damage he needed on board.
Oh, Tyler is back.
But now for DawN, the defensive Alexstrasza can keep him in the game rather than the offensive Alexstrasza.
That is crazy. DawN's just gonna proc it now, get the damage down.
Absolutely.
As it turns out, Nosdormu would have lost him the game there.
Yep.
But in an alternate universe, Darren.
In an alternate universe, what could have been Gia, but for now, DawN has equalized 2 games apiece. That was obviously not an optimal end to the game by floating 2 mana at the end, but the important thing is that he set up for the Alexstrasza saving him on the previous turn. He was clearly trying to look at board space on that previous turn by not playing the the 2/1 expired merchant in order to discard the hand of... Oh no, wait, would have discarded Alexstrasza anyway.
Yeah.
So of course that wasn't the play. Yeah, my mistake.
And I think that actually playing another minion would have put him at 7, either 6 or 7, in which case was absolutely correct to hold on to it so he could actually Alex. Otherwise, being at 2 health, he couldn't go face at all and make space without dying. So I actually really like how DawN went up his last few turns there.
Me too, especially not playing the expired merchant to discard Alexstrasza, as I would have done apparently as soon as I possibly could and just thrown away the game. But now, this is the matchup that I think Tyler was setting up for. I was talking to him a little bit earlier, and he gave me the spicy gossip that apparently, Gia, I was hypothesizing, are these the decks he's just played on stream? He's played this deck 0 times, the Dragon Hunter. He just went on HS Replay and got the best deck that beats Spell Druid, Demon Hunter / Zoo. And apparently this is really good against the Druid in particular, which is why he brought it. So we're going to have to see now if this can do the magic for him, because so far it has looked underwhelming, to say the least.
If we're talking about preparation in terms of just feeling out what people will be bringing, then Tyler is spot on. But if it's preparation in terms of actually knowing the ins and outs of this deck, I suppose Tyler could have done a little bit better. But to be fair, this is a pretty straightforward deck.
It is a fairly straightforward deck.
this draw
think we
from
can-
DawN.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, there goes the Mount Seller. Obviously, pretty bad, but not devastating in a so fast matchup like this. But the main point I wanted to say is that Tyler in that last series, I think, did take some lines that approached it too much in the face damage approach, rather than holding onto the board, which is the main difference between this deck, as you pointed out, and Face Hunter, is you do rely on board control that little bit much more.
Yeah. Just the nature of how the cards are built, the corrosive breath is clear. Wow. Another Feywing? Looks good to me. The cards are built to clear and deal face damage. The Rot Nest Drake is aggressively statted, but deals with a minion. The corrosive breath deals with a minion and goes face. So you need a perfect balance.
Well, we were talking about the Glowfly, and there it is from DawN, the premium way to fight back against Tyler's early game development. And it is a bit of a pain in the behind here for Tyler to be able to get through all of this.
It really is. The problem with the Dwarven Sharpshooter and Ping is that the rest of the mana would go on to Stone Tusk Boar, which can't even one-for-one one of these Glowflies. So Tyler, I guess, would be more inclined to go for Evasive Feywing at first glance.
Yeah.
But I'm also looking at a line where you take the 2 and 3 to look for Phase Stalker. It can be played this turn, which is about as big as the Feywing, and also has the upside of developing an explosive trap if it isn't dealt with.
And even if you hit the Stone Tusk Boar, it's not that bad either. You can just play it alongside the Dwarven Sharpshooter and still clear something off.
Yep, I like the look of that. As for trades, I do think Tyler has to take all of them. It's just too scary. All of them just being 2 in this instance.
Well, Tyler disagrees, and he is going to be met with, predictably, some kind of punish here, be it Power of the Wild or the Savage Roar that we can see is in hand. It does allow for some slightly easier trades on the Phase Stalker, but I guess given that most of his minions have 2 health anyway, or less, it's not that much of a punish.
It's true. It's for that reason that I'm looking at the Iron Bark for full cost here, but that's probably a bit too much expended. I feel like the Savage Roar doesn't achieve all that much. Ooh, so DawN is going to take it and value trade into Fairy Dragon here.
Time waits for no one.
Not entirely sure what numbers he's trying to hit here. It doesn't look so clean.
Yeah, they're so stern, but I do think that if you're going to play Ironbark, it makes sense to also Savage Roar.
Sure.
But if you're not doing either of those, I would have liked to see hard draw into using the removal spells alongside the minion trades.
Right. And also, using Crystal Power for damage instead of healing is a pretty scary concept in its own right.
It is scary, but to be fair, he's got the overflow for this upcoming turn. So I think it's just looking like taking a 50-50 here for Tyler. The thing is, ideally you'd want the Rot Nest to snipe something like Mount Seller.
Oh.
It probably won't even get to Ysera,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's almost never sniping because the Mount Seller brings minions with it immediately. I don't
That's
think
right.
you can get too greedy with this.
Misses the 50-50, but not the end of the world, all things considered. And now, yeah, we're just gearing up here for DawN to try and find that Mount Seller and lock out the game.
He did discard one though, so there's just the one remaining.
It's that situation you end up in Druid sometimes, where it's all the tertiary cards rather than the actual meat of the deck. It's all bread.
There's the option to kill off the Rot Nest Drake right now and save the health on this little Glowfly. It's not a lot of health, but it keeps a minion on board. So what I think this does from DawN is that it's not so much about him preserving board, but just eliminating ways for Tyler to get additional damage to the face. Because say if another Rotnest comes down or a Corrosive Breaths get through, suddenly DawN left the 6/5 on board, doesn't have a way to deal with it on the next turn. And he takes the 6 potentially.
Another tough choice here for Tyler. Primordial Drake fills out the turn. Explorer, sorry, again, I'm stuck in my brain. Primordial Explorer here would fill out the curve, but he's very possibly looking at the Sharpshooter plus Hero Power anyway, so therefore maybe we see the big ol' Whelp to just give him a nice bigger body and keep the card draw flowing.
I was also looking at the Explorer, but for the reason of just pairing it with Feywing for turn 7, I also really like the ping on this one. But to be fair, the 1-cost cards from Hunter, there's a few good ones. The just Arcane Shot is burst. Toxic Reinforcements can be a secondary win condition.
Sure. Tracking is premium if you can find that.
Of course.
But then there's, what is it, Bestial Wrath for 1 mana, which is going to do a fat load of nothing.
Look at the Stone Tusk War, though, Dara.
Oh, I take it all back. S tier.
Speaking of beasts, DawN with Glowfly or Mount Seller, second copy of each to be fair, is forced to just develop using these eagles. It's not nothing.
But not much. Ooh.
Clear the way. That's not
pretty
getting
dead.
activated.
Yep.
That's the wrong side quest.
But the Arcane Shot, as you said, is perfectly fine here for Tyler. Just to give him a little bit of extra something to do.
I play a lot of RPGs, Dara. I tend to be a completionist and do every side quest, but this one is literally uncompletable and it's just stuck in hand. It's a nightmare for me to look at.
Yeah, you are the person I try to be, but then get bored and just go back to playing Hearthstone.
That's a good thing, though.
Yeah, a great thing. We'll go with that.
All things considered, it's been very slow for Tyler, so DawN still has some time to cycle with the other Rising Winds. It's one of the worst draws.
Yeah, I mean, he's just got all the time in the world here, though, to carry on doing his thing in terms of board. Like, even just double Rising Winds here, Soul of the Forest plus a Innovate Power of the Wild is so much board development.
You know what? I really like the look of that. Didn't even spot it.
Obviously, it gets value traded fairly heavily by the Spellkin, which is, I'm sure, the first thing on Tyler's mind when he picked it 2 turns ago. But the main thing is it's just overall very, very difficult to clear all of this off and gives you enough time to find the Mount Seller later on.
So I'm actually looking at the Power of the Wild for another minion here with the Soul of the Forest, as opposed to buffing.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah. I think it probably gets him more stats overall, especially given that only 1 minion can go face this turn.
Sure, yeah. My thinking then is, of course, Explosive Trap, which you are fairly afraid of, but
then he has the
you
second
have the
one.
Death Rattle, yeah.
And the second power for the first layer if he wants it.
Good point. Great point.
Could also be thinking, though, a full trade. This, I'm not sure. At first, I thought he was going to hold off on the Innervate altogether to possibly give him more flexibility with Overgrowth drawing on the next turn, because he could then go Overgrowth into potentially Innervate a Mount Seller off the top.
Right.
But I don't quite like clearing the 3/5. I feel like that gives up both of his game plans.
Well, he's still got some pretty powerful plays. Like, even just next turn going double Overgrowth and not playing the excess mana in order to set up for playing them with the Mount Seller later on seems okay, just to set up for powerful plays later on. But I do agree with you overall that it was a somewhat lukewarm play when he could have gone more aggressively for counter pressure.
So far deep into DawN's deck now. Aside from the Mount Seller Ysera, there's also the other Glowfly, which is not not terrible of a draw right here.
Well, you say that he's not actually running Ysera, which is
he's not.
part of the reason, why he's had such a low average value draw here.
Instead, he has the one Wild Growth and still both Savage Roar.
Yeah.
Okay. Gonna have to be start with the Overgrowth.
This whole game with Genji, it ended up feeling just messy to me. Even here, I don't see why he's playing the excess mana. I don't get what he could draw that's worth playing for 2 mana. I think he should have saved it for the start of next turn. And then if he draws the Mount Seller naturally, he can play that with the Mount Seller.
I get it. The first one, yes, he could draw
agreed.
Blowfly, agreed.
Yep.
But the second, I also think, didn't really feel much for him here. And now we see both of the Power of the Wild stuck in hand. He could just use one for the buff now and trade down the 5/4. But that feels like so many resources expended.
It feels bad, but what else is he going to do? Tank the 5 damage? It's way too much.
Agreed. So 1 buff now. He could send the other 4/3 face.
Wow.
He's really committed to using these
wow.
on a wider board.
Well, now Tyler has all the go-ahead he could possibly need to start launching pretty much everything to the face. As long as he's not dying to surprise lethal out of nowhere, which, to be fair, is a possibility for DawN here, and may have actually been what he was setting up for on the previous turn.
We've seen that from Eagles.
10, 12... It's not quite there. Yeah. $14... Yeah, it's just not lethal here. Is it?
Wait. No, it's not.
No, it's not. Am I missing something here?
I don't know. This is definitely not lethal, but maybe... Maybe DawN's just shipping it all face anyway, hoping that healing with crystal power... No, he's just dead on board that way. He has to trade.
What did he think was going to happen here?
I don't know. I feel like he straight up miscounted based on the reaction. Oh, man.
Did he think one of these was a Savage Roar and that's what he calculated based off of?
Yeah, if he had 2 more damage, it was... no, it's not. He already attacked with face.
Yeah.
Wow.
Time waits for no one.
I mean, it's just a blunder, and it's just... game, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
Even if he can survive on this turn, I'm not really seeing much of a comeback for him.
All the win conditions are out the window because both Glowfly and the Mount Seller rely on him having spells to use with them.
Gia, this is breaking my heart. He's down 0-2 in Division B, and he just threw away a win in a crucial series he could have won. Look at his face. He's thinking, this is my relegation moment.
And you can make the argument that it's just week 3. It's just the 3rd match. But you're right. Everybody's got relegation on their minds as early as now.
Even if he loses this series, which it looks like he is about to, even if he goes on to win every series, he's only 4-3. That still leaves him very much in contention for at least the 5th, 6th spot and being relegated out.
Oh, man. The play breaking your heart. Watching DawN's reactions is breaking mine right now. Because we've all been there. Anybody who's played Hearthstone at high stakes, if you mess up on stream, it is just absolutely devastating for your morale. And DawN's not got another game today to immediately redeem himself. Makes me wonder what's going through Tyler's head as well.
Right, exactly. Focusing on DawN, but Tyler here just thinking what could possibly go wrong here and what on earth happened on that previous turn. To be honest, I think he's come to the same conclusion we would have, even if he couldn't see the cards, of he just messed up. Plain and simple. That's game.
I can see.
Really rough to watch. And for a bit of happy moments, Tyler did promise us some dance moves if he won the series. You know,
Oh my God.
in any other situation, I would be so happy to see players flex on each other after a win. But the way that ended for DawN, this just feels really. Of course, Tyler doesn't know how DawN's been reacting, but it feels really mean right now.
That was the most Michael Scott moment I've ever seen in Hearthstone there from Tyler. That was the most brutally inappropriate celebration there from, God bless him. I mean, he should be happy that he won.
Yeah.
He's able to bring him up to a pretty respectable scoreline in the Swiss, but absolutely brutal. And again, commiserations to DawN there on going down to 0-3 in a pretty devastating and, as we said, heartbreaking ending there for him. Just messed up. And I really don't want to harp on DawN about too much here, because he knows what he did wrong, and he knows he could have fixed it there. But it's just what I've been saying. He needs to tidy up these moments if he wants to prove that he deserves to keep his spot here in GM, which he can do if he turns things around as soon as possible.
Agreed. And we did see earlier on in the series just DawN at his peak, I would say. Really great recognition of the win condition of Priestess of Fury against that same deck, the Hunter from Tyler, just not proccing the explosive traps. And from the Zoo, the really brilliant pick of Alex Traza over Nozdormu. I guess it was brilliant. It's just not the Gia pick. So good on you for that one, DawN. So
yeah. Good on DawN indeed.
It does just happen sometimes. You know, you make those in Hearthstone. Sometimes you make the arithmetic mistake of just like you were one off and you didn't count that one less damage. There are also moments where it's hard to explain, but sometimes you do multiplication because of playing cards like Savage Roar, which scale instead of adding just a set amount of damage that's not dependent on minions, and then the numbers get out of control. It's definitely happened to me more than once.
It has happened to me as well, Gia. I am a professional idiot, one could say, but I think I need to go to a break there, to be honest, because for Tyler there, that was just the most... You couldn't write cringe comedy that perfect. That was next level from Tyler there with the dance. But again, well done for him there, taking the win right at the end. We're going to go to a quick break, and we will be right back with the next matchup here today in Hearthstone Grandmasters Asia Pacific after this.